Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, welcome along. It's lovely to have you with us. Just trying to get the bird song on. I forgot to click that and prepare that. Oh, well, not a huge amount to draw today. Lots of colours, though. Oh, well, I've got internet interruptions already. This is crazy. I'm back again. Dearo. I don't know what's going on in town at the moment, well, but it's a nightmare.
It's not just in town, though.
It's everywhere. Dodgy internet. Hello, Rosemary. I've got Robert here in real life. You online. I know others will be joining in later. We were meant to have somebody else in real life, but they weren't very well, so they couldn't come, which is a shame. So Robert has to endure my company.
So,
yeah, a solo lesson. I don't know where everybody is, to be honest. We were just saying this. Class numbers have dropped extraordinarily low at present. But hopefully it will pick up. So you've got your colours along the top of the screen. Black, white, ultramarine cerulean, crimson, cadmium red, lemon yellow, burnt sienna. So it's 2 blues, 2 reds, 1 yellow. You don't actually need much burnt sienna, and you could actually do it without burnt sienna if you were feeling brave. I've got it here because I'm never feeling brave. But there's the bird song. Rosemary says hello.
hello, Rosemary. When you coming back?
Yeah, we need company in real life. I've got staples. I must have totally missed the bin when I shot my staples off. Oh, right. It's just a really nice scene. What I like about this is the colour and the fact that the flowers are totally nondescript. You know what I mean? They are just blobby flowers, which is perfect for painting. Painting the odd blob. So I'm teaching, it's my last art history group in Byfield tonight. That's 5 weeks gone pretty quickly. We're doing the Dutch Masters of the Golden Age. I reckon you'll do a good one of these, Rosemary. Because it's kind of a lesser. I'll probably regret saying this. I was going to say it's one that you can't really go wrong with, but we'll wait and see. Anything is possible. But I thought it's a little bit Bob Rossish. Now it looks to me like that is a fairly dry stream bed or something to the left, isn't it? To the side of the flowers, because it's either a very puddly track or a, but the sand, the road track is slightly different. So I'm thinking maybe it was a stream, or is a stream when the snow melts. You know. And I'm not used to the autumn sudden weather change.
It's going to get warm again, Barry.
Is it? Oh, good. Good. I mean, I know I've got central heating again now. I'm like a proper grown up. But, and hot water. But now I've got it, I can't afford it. So I'm happy I've got it. But it will be emergency use only. Have I just tempted fate, Rosemary, you think? No. Honestly, I think as long as we use... That's why I've suggested lots of different colours today, because I think we'll need it for the different greens and the different purples that are in this. because we've got purpley shadowy bits and we've got pretty purples, so we kind of need the both, don't we? I've now got over, there's 55 videos on the new art stream site. A good mix. There's some pastels in there, gouache, wood soluble pen, pencil, watercolor, oil, acrylic. It's all going on. I put some older lessons on this morning. It's interesting. Whilst I was trying to download the videos, you've almost got like a storyline of or a timeline of how I got better with the technology. Because I got a rubbish microphone to start with, then I got a better microphone, and then I worked out graphics, and then I've got music, and because obviously we all had to learn as we went along, didn't we? Oh, I better put the live on air sign up. So yeah, if the phone rings, I will not be answering it. We were just saying to Robert that I've had to create an answer phone message, because when the phone is answered, weirdly, and it shouldn't, and we don't understand it, it disconnects the telephone line, and it disconnects the internet rather. It happened, and then I thought, right, we'll test it out again, and I rang the shop from my mobile. Jackie answered, fine. Then she went out of the room. Router went red instead of green, and what was more concerning is that it didn't go red, it didn't go green again when the phone call ended. It took 5 minutes for that to come back, and that's happened a few times when I've answered the phone during a lesson, and I've never really put two and two together before, not properly. I thought it was a possibility, but it shouldn't, because they're not linked. The phone isn't on, it isn't plugged into the router. So I just don't know. But I just really liked this scene. It appealed to me, and I'm not really even sure why. But I think it is the nice colours and the sun. You could make the mountains snowier if you wanted to, if you were struggling to paint the rocks. But I'll give you till about 2:15 although there's not a lot to sketch. Should I have sketched in? Because that's the... because it's kind of like that, and then that's that. I might turn that into a river. Cry me a river. So both blues, both reds, one yellow, and black and white. Obviously we always have black and white with acrylics because it's just easier. I know Christine was looking forward to this because she really felt that she was getting somewhere with acrylics. and she couldn't make it, which is a shame. Better find some brushes out, really. I do tend to, and I'm not sure why, I tend to use more flat brushes with acrylics. I'm just getting them out ready because I can never find them in my pot. We'll do the smallest bit of sky. Now, in the photograph, do you know what? I'm going to switch to a small 1/2 inch flat because it's not a huge sky, is it? There's a hint of red in that sky, isn't there? Below at the mountain line. So what I'm going to do is just scoop up with some white. My brush is slightly damp. I've gone over my mountains a little bit, but that's okay. I'm not going to clean my brush. Although there is let's wipe off excess white. Tiny bit of cadmium red in the bottom. So it softens. And I think, because we need to get a bit of depth in here, I'm not going to clean my brush, but I'll go in with a bit of cerulean and work from the top and brush downwards into the red. Doesn't matter if I get rid of a lot of that red, it can be a nice little subtle tone. But it does help if your white is still quite wet. Not runny, but wet and usable. Wipe that off. Got a nice streak right across the sky. Let's dust very lightly with the brush. So if you want to reduce your brush marks, just tickle the brush. Over the surface, and give it a little tickle. Light little, as Bob Ross would say, 2 hairs and some air. That'll do. Bit of sky. It's an interesting colour, that mountain, isn't it? Don't you think? Because it's not grey, is it? And it's not brown, and it's not sandy coloured. It's a bit, there's a bit of everything, and there is purple shadow on there as well. So we'll have to work that one out. But I'm gonna leave the sky like that. I was tempted to put a bit of ultramarine right at the very top, but should I? Let's see what it'd look like. Then you can not do it, because I've still got a little bit of white workable on my paper. Oh, you know, it does look alright with a bit of ultramarine. It just makes it slightly darker. And I know I've painted over 2 mountain tops. You could add clouds if it all goes wrong, make it a bit cloudy. And the clouds can just be there, and you could put white clouds in or ultramarine cadmium red clouds to make a sort of purpley, dark purple colour. Either option would work if you need to, but hopefully you won't need to. So we'll work the mountain in a few different ways to get the lights and the darks, I think. I'm switching to a small flat, and I'm going to go with a bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of ultramarine, not much ultramarine, just enough. I mean, if you've got burnt umber, you could use burnt umber, because I'm basically making a dark brown. And then I'm adding some yellow to it, and then a bit of white. Now I need more yellow than that, weirdly, for this light tone of the mountain. So I've made ultramarine and burnt sienna, which makes a dark brown, added yellow, and now I'm adding white, but I think I need more yellow. That's nearer the colour, so we'll go with that, and that's going to be my highlight colour. You could add a little bit of red if you wanted to make it a bit more orangey. So make a dark brown, add yellow, and then a little bit of white, and I'm just going to put that where the lighter tones are in the whole picture. No point in painting the whole of the mountain, including the darks in this. It's going to be a slightly different tone. Maybe I need to add a bit more red in there. Let's make an orange. Would an orange be better? Doesn't make much difference. I don't want a flesh tone, although it is a slightly more pinkier tone, so maybe a bit of cadmium red in there would be good. Mix it up a bit so you've got more of an orangey pinky colour and the buff biscuit colour, because it is a mountain after all. The rest has got trees. around it, so that's fine. It's amazing now the snow's all patchy, isn't it? Like a camouflage jacket or something. Because it is just really a matter of playing around with greys and purples. Because the real darker, I'm not even going to bother cleaning my brush, the real darker part of the mountain down here, I'm going to make burnt sienna, ultramarine and a little bit of cadmium red, so it's not quite brown and it's not quite purple. But I think I will have to add a little bit of white to it. Otherwise it'll just be too dominant. Well, that's quite nice. Burnt sienna, ultramarine, and a bit of cadmium red. And this is going to go right on the darkest parts of our mountain. Because there are some lighter bits to add. But the darker we can go, the more interesting the textures. I should be using a thinner brush for that, really. And I am going to do a slightly lighter version. That's snow there, isn't it? Yeah. There's snow all round there, so that's that. There's a bit of dark down there. If in doubt, we'll cover it all with trees today. I'm trying to stroke the paint in the direction of the mountain. So if I now add more white and a bit of extra ultramarine to that mix, I've got the darker snow colour for the middle bit, because it's all quite patchy, as we said. And it's unusual today that the background is actually quite fiddly compared to the foreground. Normally we'd expect it the other way around. And even where I'm putting the white snow on this dark side of the mountain, I'm still putting this bluey grey mix. And again, you don't want your brush absolutely wet. Slightly damp will help, perhaps. Probably hear my brush really scratching inside that. So I'm basically just filling in lots of areas. I've got something in front of, because mine's held up to the light, my reference image, and I've got things casting shadows, so I can't work out if it's the shadow on the picture or the shadow being cast by a microphone or something, but I think that's about right. See, I could use a really thin,
The purpley grey.
with the lighter colour or the darker colour. It's just added white to that purple that we've already mixed,
Okay.
and a little bit more ultramarine, just a little bit more, to blue it up. See, I could use a thinner brush to do a few thinner, darker lines within the mountain, really runny ones. Depends how much texture you want to give. And that's with the darker purple. I suppose it does help. But we want it to still feel quite far away. Just little lines, and then there's lots of trees to go on this, isn't there? So that'll be alright. Because the white snow is interesting in this, because there are two tones of white snow. There's the white snow in the shadows, which is basically a bit more white added to that lighter grey, so it's an off white, and then the light snow is more of a cream colour. So if I add just a little bit more white to the lighter grey mix on my plate, and I'm not having it exactly as it is in the picture, it will be my version. But I do need to see roughly where the snow is. That's all in light, this is in dark. But then we have got trees in front of all of this, most of this. But you know the story, if we don't pop it in, it'll look really weird. So this is a darker snow colour, if you like. Because we've got to put ink, because I called it a snowy mountain, didn't I? So we've got to have a snow on the mountain. Otherwise it's not a snowy mountain. Maybe that. Because the highlighted snow, I'll just clean my brush. I do want it white, but I am going to add a very small amount of lemon yellow. Now we do not want yellow snow. That's the one thing that we've all learned, isn't it? We don't want anything to do with yellow snow. but it does give it a better glow, to be quite honest. So, oh, just put it. There we go. Offset that. And that's all in light there. And
Put a light on, Barry.
oh yeah,
Do you have a magic?
just a chair.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the direction. I forgot to put it on a little bit. Sorry. There we go. Now you can see. Is that always a good thing when we're painting? I think that helps give us the idea that there's light and dark snow, doesn't it? A lot of it melted, hasn't it, really? So then it's just the really dark, sludgy fir trees that I'll put on in a bit. But again, we don't want them in too much detail. It'll be the mid-ground that's more detailed, I think. But because while you're doing that snow, I'll talk to you about the trees. The trees need to have two colours on. You need a dark green and then a slightly lighter green, which will be the highlights of them. I'll use the same brush and the same colours, but the darker green can go on first. I think that's, to be honest, that's the benefit of acrylics, isn't it? Is that you don't have to put your lightest colours down first and gradually get darker. You can put the shadow on first, know where you're going, and put your lights on top. See, what I might do, once we've done these mountain bits, I might do a big blocking in of all of the base colours before coffee break, and then it is just a matter of adding a few different things. I am going to change some of those fir trees in the mid-ground, only slightly, and I'll explain why as I do it. Nice nondescript blobby flowers in the foreground is exactly what we want. So I'm going to make a dark green from ultramarine, a little bit of lemon, but not much, and If it goes a bit weird emerald, I'll add a tiny bit of burnt sienna in there. And I'll start plopping that in. I haven't mixed up enough. So it's quite blue really, because this is the undercolour. Lots of trees on here. One more than I thought. But of course you don't have to put it all in. And it will look more tree-like once the lighter green goes on. Now interestingly, I can't see really any trees in the darker side of the mountain, so on that bit, which is interesting. This is very blue. Oh, that's a bit of a big blob. That's a massive tree on the top of that mountain now. Maybe something like that. And then if I add more lemon to it, and possibly a hint of white, and the white will be there to just make it slightly more opaque. And it might not show up much on camera. Just try cover up. Now the light is coming from the right in this. And we can tell from the shadows, and particularly these trees are all lit on the one side. So we want to keep some of those darks, but equally have a few lighter patches. I think that'll do. And obviously use the size of a brush that you feel more comfortable working with. You might find anything other than a tiny little brush too difficult to get to grips with, and that's alright. Work with what you know works for you. And if you don't know what works for you, you will soon find out. Well, that looks alright on the screen. Well, from here, Robert, that looks really quite nice.
Upside down.
Upside down and from a distance, yes.
Perfect.
That's the way all paintings should be viewed.
I will display it in that.
So I want to block in all of the base colour. So I'm still gonna go with, I think, only a 1/2 inch flat rather than anything too big. Currently, because I don't want to go too crazy. I want to put a nice. So this is all the darker tones that I'm going to put in. Now, if I go with some, I'm going to mix it where I've got this sludge anyway. Lemon yellow and a bit of burnt sienna. Yeah, lemon yellow and a bit of burnt sienna, and that's for where the brighter grass stuff sits. And I know there are trees behind that, and we can work on that. Now, annoyingly, I've wet my I cleaned my brush, but it's a little bit too sloppy. I didn't dry it off. Sounds like rain. But as I'm going to do that bit, but then as I come to what I think could be a dried riverbed, I'm going to add just a bit more burnt sienna, stipple that in. Not clean my brush. Maybe go a little bit flatter with my strokes. And you know very well what will come next is black. And I won't clean my brush for that either. Fill all of that in. Because the flowers are so nondescript. We don't need to have anything too perfect. And because acrylics are opaque, or largely opaque, we know we can paint over it a bit more. Maybe I want a bit of brown, although the black is so strong. It's just eaten up any brown I've just added. And because I'm working on canvas paper, you can probably hear me really pushing the paint into the fibre of the paper, because you think you've covered it, and then as it dries you end up with lots of little white bits showing up. Now, there are certain things you can do to this painting at this stage, and it is going to be a personal choice. I'm just going to get my hairdryer on this because I can discuss it with you then, and show it you for you to go, oh no, not me. And I'm hairdrying it so I can lean on it to do the other bits. And then we can have a quick coffee break while everybody else is drying, or you're all trying to think whether you want to do what I've just done. But I need to make sure my mountain bit is dry. Because in the photograph there is a bit of mist, and I want to do it, and I'm going to keep doing it because I know I know you like it, but you find it difficult on the whole. If I've got a big brush here, and I want to put a white glaze to create mist. Now I know it's a make or break situation. So you use white and a lot of water to create a very dilute colour. Now you do not have to do this if you do not want to. But for me, I think pushing the mountains back will really help with the landscape. The riverbed was more burnt sienna. A bit more burnt sienna. So I've made sure that everywhere's dry, but can you see now that that has given me a bit of mist? Let me dry it off again so you can see it where it's not reflective. So that's just runny white. Too much white and you'll end up with a blizzard. So it is scary. Yeah, so I didn't clean my brush for the riverbed, Rosemary. I just used the same filthy brush and added more burnt sienna, then added a bit of black, then went really crazy with the black. Now it's dry, you can't tell I've really put that whitewash on. It just pushes it back. It's given us an extra couple of miles of the landscape, but it is very scary to do. It is, and there's not a lot I can do about it. What I will say is, if you're thinking of doing it, make sure you've got some kitchen roll by your side. So if you do it and it's too thick, you can either add more water or quickly dab it off. And maybe do it again, but your background has to be really dry for that. There's one more thing I am going to do before the coffee break, and I just want to plop in the black outline of the fir trees with a thin brush and some runny black paint. And then we can concentrate on highlights and textures and stuff in the next hour. But and while I'm running up and downstairs getting Robert a drink and myself a drink, then at least you can do a bit more faffing. Basically, I am just going to use my thin brush and black paint the trunk stick, and then do a bit of flitting left to right. Now, what I said I was going to change, if you notice in the reference image, all of the trees are perfectly aligned with the mountain top, aren't they, on that left side? I'm going to bring one up here. Thin line. Scary. It's going to be a little bit damaged, so I'm going to see through it a little. And I'm just doing some jerky squiggles. I had to describe to somebody what a jerky squiggle was yesterday, and I said it's a bit like if you're doing if you have a bit of a shiver while you're painting. It's a bit like that. So same brush. I could use the fan brush, but I think it's too big for these trees. I want a nice cluster of trees. You could just paint all of your trunks first. Make some shorter, make some taller. Get rid of any bits of background that you don't like the look of. And then fill in all of the base. You can add more trees than there is, or fewer trees, depending on, you might really like part of your background. And that's where, because we haven't necessarily drawn them in, we've got a little bit more control. Just slightly wider at the base. a little bit taller. And I've bought one over the mountain range. Well, two now. And the reason for doing that is to, again, create more distance and depth in the background. And then we've got some slightly shorter ones behind. And when we do highlights on here, I'm going to be using the same brushes. Well, Banbury looked absolutely stunning on the news of the cyclists, aerial view footage and all of this kind of thing from the race yesterday. Oh, look at that, that's nice. I tell you, I prefer looking at my painting on that little screen than I do in real life. But you know, I'm going to leave it like that and then sort the drinks out. What you having, Robert?
White Americano, please.
A white Americano.
Yeah. Lovely.
I will see Kathy.
Kathy can do that.
the alpha phone just kicked on. I have to listen to the alpha phone, Right, we've got cherry and almond cake.
Almond, isn't it?
How do you say almond?
They say almond.
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 Because Roger in Everything's playing up today. Right, Rosemary, are you there? I think I'm back. I'm back. Oh. Let me just wiggle my hands just so I can tell. I don't know how that will if that will show up online. Right, so lost Rosemary. See if I can get her back. I'm drubbing my fingers. Right, they've appeared. Right, I'll let her know. I'll have a bit of cake. How's it going, Robert?
Overdid the mist. To rescue that.
That's easily done. You only need a slightly bit more white, don't you? And then you're in a
So many times.
heavy fog.
And perhaps too much white underneath too.
Right. Okay, so I want a slightly nice light green. So lemon yellow and ultramarine. Now I'm using my thin brush. So now I know not to have the answer phone message on. No, I've turned the right, Rosemary. What I found just happened is because I've created an answer phone message to say, sorry, I can't take your call. I'm teaching, which I thought would stop the lines from going down. But actually, it's the same as answering a phone when an answer phone kicks in. So it did exactly the thing that I was trying to avoid, which is stupid of me. I know. I didn't really think it through. So now it's just going to ring, and if the phone rings and nobody answers it, and the answer phone doesn't answer it, it's fine. So there's a lot of lemon yellow, a little bit of ultramarine in there, and I'm just going to touch. Oh, I think I need a bit of white actually to make it opaque. I did have to serve a customer as well, otherwise I would have been on the ball a little bit more. Because we don't really have many customers anymore, unfortunately. Quiet season. Well, it is, I know. We're going to have to start planning. It's only 80 days away, or something. Something scary like that. Keep your darks. And don't forget the light's mainly on the right, so concentrate your highlights mainly on the right. that'll do, I think. I don't want to do anything over the top with that. Okay. Now I might use... Now, do I want a stabby brush or do I want a... I've got a fan brush here. I could use a fan brush maybe for some grassy bits. If I don't mix it thoroughly and I've got some darker bits of green and some lighter bits of green, I can stipple some bits of grass on here. At the end of an acrylic class, what I have to do is get some more white acrylic to repaint my board white, because with watercolours it's fine, I can just wipe it off, but obviously with acrylics it doesn't wipe off, does it? So my whiteboard soon loses its whiteness. Maybe a bit more yellow, although there's a bit more burnt sienna in that background bit. It doesn't really matter if you don't cover all of this up. So if I add a bit more burnt sienna and red, stipple a bit of that. Clumpy stuff, that's what we want. Clumpy bits and not thoroughly mixed bits. Bit of white in there. White always helps it make it opaque, but it does change the tone. I'll put a little bit of this over the background as well down here. Something like that maybe. See this riverbed, I do want it to be a bit more riverish, I think. Yeah. So if I...
Is there water there?
Yeah, the blue bits is water, so that's what makes me think maybe it's more of a fast flowing stream when the snow all melts, perhaps. So we'll turn it into a bit more water. So if I go with a bit of cerulean with a little flat brush and some white, I think I need more white than that, because it's going to reflect the sky colour, isn't it? And I'll do a few little wiggly bits, so it's more than a puddle. Sneeze. I was messing around with some talcum powder yesterday, and it really affected my sneeziness, and I keep on having bits of it up my nose.
It's the season, don't you think?
What, sneezy season? It is. There's a lot of colds about. It's back with a vengeance. We all escaped it last year, didn't we?
We did. I went for almost 2 years with that.
What I have found, a little tip I've had that I discovered when I had a bit of a cold a year and a half ago. I put a couple of drops of Olbas oil in my face mask,
Oh, yeah.
and it really does make a difference because you're not having to lunge for tissues and what have you. It's already there. I do like Olbas oil.
I actually like the pastels,
Yes.
which a lot of people say, oh no, they taste horrible.
See, I like a bit of Vicks Vapor Rub. I like Dettol.
Strong.
Yeah, I like all that antiseptic-y smell. You see, I don't want to make this into a river as such, but I think having that little bit of bright colour, then we can play around with some stones. Because there's lots of stones in there, and I'll try and do a quick method, which I have shown some of you before, I think, where you double load your brush, and then we should have lots of bright colours left for the flowers. Trying to find my smaller flat brush again. You see, that one might be too small, but I'm going to stick with it. Could work. Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. So I need to make more of the original mountain colour, but it needs to be slightly more orange. So if I do brown, yellow, cadmium red, and white. Oh, that's a good colour. I think I've got too much white in there now. So I need 2 tones of colour. I need this lighter stone colour, and then I'm going to go burnt sienna and ultramarine to make a dark brown. And basically what I am going to do with that is one side of my flat brush is going to be the dark colour, and the other side of my flat brush is the light colour. So the light will face upwards, and hopefully that means I can just literally press or drag my brush, and I've got highlights and shadows all in one go. I remember Kevin, when he was over here, we did a whole painting of a riverbed doing stones, and he got so excited doing this method. It is a very exciting method, though, to be honest.
You hear from him, Bob?
Yeah, we keep in touch quite often. He's doing all right.
He says very occasionally of painting.
Yeah, I think he hasn't had the same level of mojo, like a lot of us haven't really. It's funny, isn't it? We have all of the time in the world to do it, but we have so little motivation. You know, when everything's all up in the air, you don't feel like you want to create. I know I don't, and it's my job.
So, when I've got the
Yeah. So you have, if you imagine, if you think that's my, if you think, yeah. So that's my hand is the flat brush. So we have it like that.
yeah,
So that top of my hand is the light colour.
yeah.
The bottom is the dark colour, and you can either just print with your brush or drag it or curve it. It takes a bit of practice, and you might need to reload frequently, either the light or the dark, depending which one is more prevalent. I will put a few bits in amongst the flowers because there are some rocks in there. Obviously, the bigger the brush, the better it will look, but I think that'll do. Oh, I've just put the dark colour in the wrong thing. Never mind. Maybe add a bit more white. That'll do. It's weird seeing it just floating on a black background. So all the rest will be green leaves, then flowers. In the remaining half an hour. Let that dry. And then I'm not really wanting to do anything in detail as such with the green foliage, and I am literally going to be playing around with dark blues and light greens, all done with a thinnish brush. Maybe I'll do some dark greens first. So that's ultramarine and a little bit of lemon yellow, and it doesn't really matter where you shove it, to be honest. Because we're just plopping in. Now you could, if you wanted to, if you're feeling really adventurous, you could double load a thin brush and just do lights and darks, but I find it easy just to do all the darks in one go. So I'm not covering up all of this black, but I will be doing sort of more bluer literal blobs and more slightly lemony versions, but it's still within the realms of a darker green. I'm going to try and think slightly differently for each cluster I do, so they're not all repetitive. So I might do some tinier dots or some longer, thinner flicks, but they're really nondescript bits and bobs, because we're then going to load up with lighter greens, and then we're going to add our floral colours in, which are also going to be blobs. You could change your brushes, so you're using a different shaped brush to give a different effect. There is, you see, I don't know these look American or Canadian, don't they, the flowers and the scene. It certainly doesn't look like Snowdonia or Scotland, no. So broad strokes, thin strokes, little flicks. Really, this is to build up the tones of the feeling. We've got lots of mass foliage going on. Might be bigger and broader as you get towards the lower part of the page, because that will give you the feeling of distance and depth. But then you need to have your lighter colours, which is more yellow and a bit of white. Although there are areas in this that there are quite dark bits of foliage where it's in shadow, I guess. So you can just muck about. Well, don't forget it's Fair Week next week. So the parking that is already limited will be limited even more as the fair rolls into town. It shouldn't roll in until Tuesday, but you can bet your life by Monday afternoon the car parks will already be cordoned off. It does bring a different lot of people in the town though, which is good. People that you only see every October. Every Michaelmas. And of course there was no fair last year. Although we were, it's such a blur the last couple of years. We were open in October, were we? Or was there a mini firebreaker in October? Because we opened in June last year. That's when we all reopened officially, and I think there was a 2 week, 3 week.
Before Christmas there was something.
Yes, and then Christmas Eve was another one. I think, yeah, everything's a blur. The last 2 years are just almost like they didn't happen. But obviously life has happened, and it's knowing it does affect your memory because there are no markers to plan time, is there? To remember that you generally, oh, I went to so and so, or I did such and such.
Remember what you didn't do.
Yeah. So this is just a lighter green, bit more yellow, little bit of white. Might do some long, thin strokes, which could be stems. I don't know, because I'm making the foreground bit up, to be honest. Foregrounds are always a minefield at the best of times, but with this, because it is such a random thing and we can cover a lot of it up with purple blobs and pink blobs, it's going to look like flowers no matter what we do, hopefully. Maybe you want some little clusters of dottier leafy things. And what the important thing to remember when we're doing this is not to fill in all of that dark that we put in earlier, because otherwise it's a waste of time. Just add a little bit. I'm going to let that dry for a sec. So most of this now, I think that the rest of it, the flowery bits, I'm going to just do with my thin brush. If I put these other brushes out the way, then I won't be tempted to shove bigger things in situ. So
the yellow brushes, do you find they lose the paint on the wood?
They do, yeah. Although actually I've had mine.
The lilac ones don't.
No, although you see, I've had this one for since the start of lockdown, and I've still got all of my paint on my brush on mine. So I don't know whether.
Yeah, just flakes off.
Yeah, my big one has. Interestingly, Dale Rowney do a range of brushes called Dalon, and they're nylon watercolour brushes,
Right.
and with a red handle and a white bottom.
And they shed
they shed, and they have always shed ever since I remember. You know, retail it when I was 17 years old. Everybody always used to moan. The bristles were fine, the ferrule was fine, but there's something about as soon as you, and they're watercolour brushes, so they've got to be in water, and they all flake off, and they still flake off. So there must be some sort of recipe issue that they've never bothered to change. And they're not cheap brushes. You know, they're the Daylon brushes are, you know, a fairly decent quality. So it's very bizarre. So I'm just going to play around with some different colours. With my carmine colour, which is it's a bit softer than crimson. It's more transparent, so I'm going to have to add a bit of white with it. And I might do these as the best way I can describe it as like lupins, as little or foxgloves. Little.
Oh, I know they are.
Do you?
They're red hot poker.
Are they? Where are they from?
South Africa.
Are they?
But
This doesn't look
very
like.
common here now.
I was going to say this doesn't look like South Africa, does it?
No. They're probably everywhere.
Yeah. I dare say. I will change the reds as well, so I might do a bit in this crimson, and then I'll do a bit in cadmium red. But with the cadmium red, I'll probably keep the cadmium red for the lower part of the paper, because it's so bright and warm. It will give us more distance and more depth. So I'm going to reserve cadmium red until afterwards. Now I've just spotted I have a customer, so it'll give you a chance to do some blobbing. And I'll see you in a minute. fresh. I think I'm back, Rosemary. So I haven't done anything else, I was just waiting for it to reset, and I'm doing a few cadmium red blobs. And the cadmium red, if you remember, I said I'm doing right at the foreground. Maybe towards the mid a little bit. And if I do any right at the back, they're going to be really tiny blobs. It'll be more foreground. Blobby things, and then I'll do more smaller blobby things with some purples. And I'm just basically using the tip of my brush to create a shape. And then I will make a nice bright purple from ultramarine and crimson and white. And maybe do a few little tinier dots, because actually the purple flowers are the ones that are the most dominant, aren't they, in this? All purple and blue in the mid-ground, foreground bits. And what you can do some slightly darker tones and then add some more white to make them lighter in places. But you want to leave some of the darks, leave some of the greens. Maybe a bit of ultramarine in there to go darker. Some closer together, further apart. I'm not trying to think of it as this is a specific flower or what have you. I'm just thinking of some nice shapes that could work if they were flowers. So I will not be saying this is whatever type of flower, because that just opens yourself up for being told off for not knowing your flowers. If I add a bit more white to that purple colour, then I can add highlights just on the right side, because that's so we said the light is coming from the right. We'll keep some dark. If you wanted very, very fine flowers, you could always use a white gel pen, perhaps. I feel I ought to do some orangey flowers or something. The yellow and cadmium red will give me a slightly brighter orange, and then I'll need to add a bit of white to that. It just breaks up all of the colour. Oh, it does work quite well actually, with a little bit of white, not too much. I don't want to do too much repetition of colour, but that occasionally you get it where you get a little batch of flowers in one place and then quite a big gap and then another little batch. I honestly don't know if I want to do much more, if any more, to be quite honest. I might do some slightly brighter yellowy green foliage or something in very sparse places, but I don't know if it'll make much difference. Just cheese it up a little bit. That's turned out nicely actually. I don't know, again I could add more red and I could do more this, but a slightly thicker cadmium red at the front maybe. So I am doing it really thick. I've got a bit of texture going on here. You can see how thick it is on my brush. I've got no water at all. I've got to make it as opaque as possible. Otherwise, especially with the flowers, the issue you've got is that we're having to add white to make the colours opaque to stand out, and when you add white you do invariably change the colour, don't you? So that's not always ideal. But that's just a mixture of orangey colours, purpley colours, reddy colours, but the cadmium red more so in the foreground, because you can see there it brings a lot more depth into the scene. Now I could use a white gel pen just to add water edge to these puddles a little bit maybe. I won't use a gel pen to do white flowers, I don't think, unless I wanted to add a little cluster of daisies or something on the green end that we haven't done anything with. Because I'll end up clogging my pen up, you know what I'm like. I'll go through these gel pens like anything. Because I'm too, even with the watercolour, I'm too eager, and with the acrylics end up getting it clogged with acrylics, and with the watercolours it's too wet, so all the water goes in, and oh, it's terrible. But you know, I'm quite pleased with that. It is a nice scene though, it's a nice photograph. Yeah, I think that will be what am I inflicting on you in a fortnight? Let's see if I can find the right booklet. Oh, an eerie lamplit evening in a park. That'd be quite nice. How to get glowing light. Tomorrow afternoon's drawing class is Dudley Castle. Thursday morning is a wintry tree practice in pencil. Thursday afternoon is frosty misty views over Arthog in North Wales. Friday afternoon is a man rowing a boat across a lake in watercolour. Saturday morning is calligraphy, and we're doing illuminated monograms. Sunday morning is a stormy sea crashing against the promenade in watercolour. Monday morning live from Wardington is a colourful night sky with looming trees in watercolour. And Monday evening we'll be doing frosty misty views over Arpog. So some nice lessons to come up with. I will, as soon as the lesson ends, I will be phoning my internet provider to give them a right earful to see what on earth is going on, and hopefully we won't have this problem tomorrow. So thank you very much for your company today. I look forward to seeing what you've created when you get round to finishing it, and I'm sure it'll look even better than mine. But I am pleased. I'm glad I put the mist on. The misty bit pushed it back enough to add more depth in, and keeping bright red away from the midground and distance has helped, I think, there as well. So thank you very much. Take care, and I'll see you all soon. Bye bye everybody. Bye bye.